I want to welcome all the friends and family from near and far for gathering this afternoon to pay tribute to a man whose love for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people, for his family, knew no bounds. Today marks the end of a month-long journey where we've all been processing this enormous loss, each of us. There are so many times personally in the last month when I've thought about something and wondered what Lou would have thought. I would have called him. I was about to call him. And then you have that realization that's very sobering. But today we're also here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate the extraordinary, indefatigable spirit that Lou embodied and that he gives to us as his gift. And we're going to hear from many people whose lives Lou touched, who are going to offer their own memories and tributes to a life exceptionally well lived. My blessing to all of us as we begin this service today is that we look, each of us, at our lives at every single minute and live it imagining we're Lou Balcher. To squeeze the life and passion and purpose out of every single fiber of our being, every single moment of our lives, thinking about the example that he set for all of us. So today, we're going to say a few psalms, a few prayers, and we're going to hear from, again, a number of speakers. We'll be hearing some folks coming in via the Zoom, and we'll be introducing them. We're going to ask that our virtual speakers try to limit your comments to about 3 minutes, and we're going to leave the Zoom on following our service until about 2:30. So if you want to linger and chat and schmooze, you're very welcome to do so. So we'll open again our service this morning with the chanting of Psalm 23. Adonai ro'i lo echsar bin hodesh yarbitzeini al mei menuchot al Yenaleini Nafshi Shovev Yeshovev Yancheini b'maglet tzedek Yancheini b'maglet tzedek Leman Shemo Gam Kilech Beketz Hamavet Lo Irarak Yatayim Adi Shivtecha Umishantecha Hamuni Ta'aroch lefanai Shulchan eget zorerai Tishanta v'shem en raishi Kosi revaya Ser yirtefuni koyemechayai v'shavti b'vet Adonai le'orech yamim Adonai ro'i lo echsar. It's my honor to call upon Lou's very dear friend of over 25 years, my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Jeff Schnitzer, to open with some words of Torah.
one of my favorite midrashim from Masechet Yadayim, the tractate in the Talmud called the Tractate of the Hands, which requires a whole lot of explanation anyway. But I apologize to those who've heard me share this before, but I think it applies. There's an argument among the students of Rabbi Akiva. No surprise, but they're arguing over what the most important verse in Torah. And one group says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It is the proclamation of faith that we recite twice daily. The second group says, V'ahavta l'reyecha kamocha. Our teacher Hillel, Rabbi Hillel, said this is the most important verse. He tells a student while standing on one foot, this is the essence of Torah, now go and learn. And the third group argues, Erakeves ha'echad daseh baboker v'asakeves ha'sheni taseh bein harbayim. You should bring the morning offering in the morning and the evening offering in the evening, the karban tamid. And Rabbi Akiva, as the Talmud says, stands up. And I can see him bang his shoe on the table, maybe, and saying, I rule with the third group. To say that you love God is fine. To say that you love your fellow human beings, is also fine. But unless you do something each and every day that demonstrates that love, the words are meaningless. Lou was never short on words. I can remember at Kahila meetings, Lou, you have 3 minutes. 8 minutes later, Lou, you only have 3 minutes. He took that to mean you have 3 minutes more. Lou certainly loved his fellow human beings. But what he did each and every day, his days, each and every day, his actions spoke louder than his words. I'm going to quote another one of my colleagues who unfortunately could not be here today because he had a levaya in Baltimore, Rabbi Joshua Gruenberg. But Rabbi Gruenberg had a very, very funny quote about Lou, and anybody who knows Lou will understand it immediately. It takes a village to raise a Lou. Now, it's funny even out of context, but what it meant was sometimes it was a little challenging to say to Lou, slow down just a little bit. He didn't have time to slow down. He didn't have the restraint to slow down because he was so passionate about everything that he did. His love for his family, his love for his community, and his love for Eretz Yisrael and the people, Klal Yisrael. These were his passions in his life. Every day, Jocelyn would hear the words, I love you. Every day, his children knew and understood just from what he did, how he loved them. And it didn't just limit himself to his immediate family, it was everyone. I was fortunate to meet Lou a little over 25 years ago as the father of one of my drum students, David. He found out I was the rabbi at Tifereth Israel and asked if he could speak to the board about his organization. Okay. He comes in with a slide presentation. I didn't think we were doing PowerPoint then, but a slide presentation. And I learned firsthand at that moment about YJLC. A couple years later, Lou asked me to speak at a ski weekend. And I spoke on sex in the Bible, stuff they don't teach you in Hebrew school, which later became one of my signature lectures, Wild and Wayward Women of the Bible. Stuff they don't teach you in Hebrew school. So Lou sort of launched my speaking career in terms of giving lectures. But Lou and I became more than just rabbi and layperson. We became friends over those 25 years. And whenever I would meet with him, I'd go stick my hand out to shake his hand. No, a bear hug from that bear of a man. I already miss those hugs. We worked together to try and build YJLC. And I made a promise to him as he lay there in hospice. I made a promise to him that I would do whatever it would take to work with David, with Alex, with the family, to make sure we build YJLC and bring young people into a love of the Jewish people and the love of the people and the land of Israel. This was my promise to him, and I intend to fulfill it, God willing, God willing. I'd like to close my brief remarks with one other piece from Avot. In chapter 1, verse 15, Heve mekabel es kol ha'adam b'sever panim yafos. Rabbi Shammai said, receive every person with a pleasant countenance. I don't even know if Lou knew this was a mitzvah. It was something he observed each and every day with each and every person. Anybody who came in contact, those who are here and those who are with us on Zoom, know exactly what I'm talking about. That big smile, that gracious welcome that you knew in no uncertain terms that you were important to Lou. May he merit a place among the righteous of the world. Zichrono livracha, and may his memory indeed be for a blessing. Amen. I would like to ask Rabbi Weiss, my dear friend and colleague, to share a few words.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schnitzer and Yasher Koach, on those beautiful words. Exactly 3 years ago, this Shabbat, on the portion of Fikludei, at my on-site tryout weekend at Bethel, I was blessed to meet Lou Balcher. But it didn't feel like I was meeting Lou Balcher for the first time. Lou had this way of instantly drawing you in with his tremendous energy, passion, and kindness. I was immediately drawn to Lou's signature Cheshire cat-like broad smile, a smile that lit up the entire room. Never one to miss an opportunity to connect and start dreaming, Lou charged forward from the back of our small chapel right after that Friday morning minyan, seemingly out of nowhere, to introduce himself. And so our friendship began. He began with his famous Google Lou from Philadelphia, Israel. That's how you'll find me. Within seconds of our conversation, Lou demonstrated his formidable prowess in the realm of Jewish geography by pulling up on his smartphone an image of him standing with my sister back from his time working with the Israeli consulate in Philadelphia. Of course he knew my sister, who made Aliyah 20 years ago to realize her dream of serving in the Israeli government. If people here are like Lou Balcher, I thought to myself, I want to be part of this community. Indeed, Lou proved himself to be the kind of communal leader and partner that you dream of as a congregational rabbi. Lou's indefatigable spirit and palpable love for Israel and the Jewish people was simply contagious. He was a living connector. whether in organizing his very successful Israel Forum, whether in his efforts to support the Kaplan Medical Center, whether in his spearheading the Synagogue Connect initiative, or his trailblazing work in the founding and leading of the YJLC, the Young Jewish Leadership Concepts. I'm very honored that just a few months ago, Lou put my name before the ladder to join the national board in this leadership and to give guidance to that organization. We would spend countless hours strategizing, dreaming, thinking of new ways to pull in young people, a passion I share too. When I initiated our Beth El one-to-one relational meeting campaign, Lou immediately understood the value of creating inclusive and values-driven spaces for our community to thrive, and personally did everything that he could to assist us in that quest, as complicated as it sometimes was. Lou was ready, willing, and able to do anything to help advance a young Jewish leader, and is indeed directly responsible for both the career advancement and even the marriages of countless young Jews whom he helped mentor. Lou instinctively understood the urgency of meeting people, especially young people, where they are at, and drawing them in to Jewish communal leadership and Israel advocacy. He dedicated his life to creating a seemingly endless stream of opportunities to cultivate meaningful Jewish leadership and action. During the pandemic, Lou's audience expanded through virtual platforms where he was able to spread his love for the state of Israel even further, reaching across time zones. To fully understand Lou, though, you have to understand his family, both his family of origin and the one he so lovingly created together with his beautiful Egyptian princess, Jocelyn, whom he rightfully adored. Shortly after I met Lou, he shared with me at length memories of his mother, Rebecca, of blessed memory. His love and admiration for her knew no bounds. She was clearly a woman ahead of her time, an accomplished legalist, a high achiever, a dedicated mother, all on her own at a time when that was not so common. And above all, truly a woman of valor. Every year on the Shabbat of Rebecca's Yortzeit, Lou volunteered to deliver a Devar Torah celebrating her values, her life, and her legacy. He explained to me that the greatest mandate in his life was to be what he called an NJB, or a nice Jewish boy. And that's a tribute to his mother's loving influence on his life. Not only was Lou a nice Jewish boy, but he also succeeded in raising, alongside Jocelyn, may God protect her, two phenomenal nice Jewish boys, David and Alex. David and Alex brought and continue to bring Lou and Jocelyn the nachat, that joy and pride they so very much deserve. Their dedication to their family, to their Judaism, and their tremendous menschlichkeit all stand as an example to all of us. These are the young men who took it upon themselves to renovate Lou and Jocelyn's home with their own hands. Even more importantly, these are young men who dropped everything in their busy young professional lives to attend to their beloved father around the clock when he was ailing. They're young men who've met similarly kind and impressive young women, Abby and Marissa, and are clearly modeling that relationship that they're having on the inspiring foundation of love and commitment that Lou and Jocelyn shared. Lou was a natural organizer, and he drew in effortlessly crowds of family and friends wherever he was, whether in person or virtually. I think back to this period of the pandemic when Lou's health took many different turns, but no matter what, he would be there on this Zoom screen. That was cute. Every Shabbat. And not only would Lou be there, but she had the whole Al-Ghazi Balcher clan in tow. And it was a love fest. It was a Lou love fest, the best kind possible. You had Chuck, you had Elizabeth, you had Mrs. Al-Ghazi, you had the whole crew. And Lou would be there, kind of like the Peter Gabriel moment of standing with his sign, saying hello to Mrs. Al-Ghazi, whom he treated like his own mother. Mrs. Al-Ghazi, whom we just tragically had to bury this past week. When I was saying goodbye to her, I asked her to send a hug to Lou for us. He was so with love for her and the whole crowd He would sit in the hospital on Shabbat services, and he forgot to have his kippah. So what he did was he took his mask and he pushed it up to his head, and there was Lou's makeshift kippah. He had a great sense of humor. Lou delighted in any happy occasion and would repeatedly go out of his way to gather together family to mark a happy milestone, whether it was a birthday Zoom for his dear mother-in-law, Tony, or whether it was a wedding anniversary with Jocelyn. More recently, Lou successfully fulfilled his mother's longtime wish that he and his siblings be in regular contact. He has a lot of siblings. During the course of Lou's cancer, Lou rounded up his siblings who all rallied around him, joining in for their weekly Wednesday Zoom call, an experience they all described as having been extremely meaningful. Every Lou gathering, as I call it, was an expression of the height of joy, a joy made possible only by true affirmation and commitment to our Jewish values. Yosef Karo, who lived in Sfat, where Lou now eternally rests, author of the Shulchan Aruch, the authoritative 16th century code of Jewish law, understood the importance of joy and the tremendous strength of spirit that it required. He concluded Orach Chaim, the fourth section of the Shulchan Aruch, with the following words: V'tov lev mishtet tamid. The word mishtet tamid, perpetual celebration. Rabbi Schnitzer spoke of the daily offering, the constant offering. It's a commitment of constant joy. And this is how he began the Shulchan Aruch. I've placed God before me always. This is a great rule of the Torah and for all achievement. A person should not be embarrassed in front of others who mock him in his service to God. Even when he's alone, he should know before whom he stands. What an important lesson. From beginning to end, our service to God should be filled with joy. But that joy can be a struggle at times, especially when we're alone with our true selves and our rawest emotions. Achieving authentic joy is hard work. It's never easy. An interesting Kabbalistic text points out that the word b'simcha, with happiness, is actually the same letters, the gematria, as machshava, thought. In other words, happiness is not superficial, but the result of a disciplined mind. It's hard work to be happy, but Lou was happy in a way that seemed almost effortless, even when it was tough, because his work lifted him up and gave him energy, because he held unique insights about what it meant to create enduring community and to be the torch that illumines the path for others. I mentioned at the beginning of my talk that the week on which I met Lou was this very week of Shabbat of Pikudei, the portion, which we're going to read this Shabbat. Pikudei marks the end of the book of Exodus, the culmination of our ancestors' tremendous striving and journeying through the wilderness with unshakable resolve and purpose. A cloud guided them through the day, and a pillar of fire illuminated their night journeys. Towards the very end of this portion, we read that when a cloud lifted from the Mishkan, the Israelites would set out on their various journeys, plural of journeys. The plural use of the word journeys I find intriguing, especially because at this point we may very well imagine in the narrative a more unified, singular journey of the unified people. But this is the genius of the Torah, and this is the genius of Lou Balcher. Each of our journeys toward the land of Israel and towards serving the Jewish people is going to be different. It's upon us to figure out which resources each Jew, each person needs to arrive at their own personal promised land, however he or she will journey. We each find space for Israel and for the Jewish people in our own personal way. Lou knew this very well, and he devoted his life and his energies to helping others join him, each in their own way, on his path to strengthening and elevating our Jewish homeland. Today, here, you all of us here in the room and on Zoom, this is a Lou event. And I have every confidence that it will not be the last. Lou created a community that defied time zones, languages, and ages. Lou, I miss you very deeply, my dear friend, partner, and mentor. Yehi zichro baruch. We're now going to hear on the Zoom from some friends, including our colleague, Rabbi Scott Hoffman, who will share with us some words.
So first of all, thank you, Rabbi Weiss, both for your inspiration and your leadership of Bethel, and thank you to Rabbi Schnitzer for issuing the invitation, and thanks to the many friends I made during a wonderful year in Yardley. So I should begin by saying that many of you know Lou for quite a bit longer periods of time than what I did. And so when you asked me, I wanted to share something with you, which I think is really my own Lou story, and I don't think it's widely known, but it speaks to the essence of who Lou was as a person. And he was a person for whom I had great professional admiration and also personal affection. It turns out when I came to Yardley, I was introduced a mutual friend to a colleague, Rabbi Cadell. Rabbi Cadell has a synagogue called Knesset Sefer. It's located not very far at all from Bethel. And he asked me if after being in the Bethel Minyan from about 7 in the morning to 7:45, 7:50, if I was there. Okay. If I would go with him, if I go over to the Minyan at Knesset Sefer, they need some help to ensure the quorum. And I assured him I'm happy to do that. And after about a week or two of seeing me kind of dash out the door and not have one of the famous, wonderful Karen Shoemaker breakfasts, which just a big highlight of Bethel, along with the Randy Flager Scotch, I think. He's asked me, Rob Scott, what's happening? That was his name for me, Rob Scott. Absolutely loved the name. When I was a young rabbi, they called me Rabbi Scott, and I was wishing to be older. Now he called me Rob Scott. I was wishing to be a little younger, but I really enjoyed it. Rob Scott, what are you doing? And I told him, listen, I'm here. I'm helping out a colleague who needs some help to ensure the continuity of the Minyan. And he immediately volunteered himself to also do the same. And he said, just let me jump in a car with you. And now we can tell Rabbi Cadell he has not one extra person every Thursday, but he has 2 extra people every Thursday. And for an entire year, every Thursday, very faithfully, the 2 of us got into my car. We drove right past Albert and Judy's house. We would wave to the house on the way. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'd see a big smile come out on Rabbi Cadell's face because he knew that the Minyan was secure. We had 2 extra participants, and that usually was enough to put it over the top. And to me, this just epitomizes Lou in so many ways. One is, it was never a burden to him. He did this with great joy. He did it with great simcha. In the entire year, he never complained that we didn't have breakfast at Bethel, and he never complained that he was tired, and never complained that it was difficult going to 2 Minyans on a particular morning. He was happy that he was helping out 2 communities and not 1. The second is, I must tell you, our conversation we had in the car, I always found just wonderful and uplifting and inspiring. And I would reach my office Thursday after the second Minyan, and I would be kind of energized for the remainder of the day. But the third is the most important. Lou, any Jewish cause, any Israeli cause, Lou was the man on the spot. But the key to being on the spot is you don't wait for somebody to call you. You actually make yourself aware of where you're needed and how you can be of help and how you can set the example for others and how you can be a dugma. And even though it's just one little tiny part of Lou, I think it speaks volumes to the way he led his life and to the level of not only friendship, but inspiration to all of us. And I know, to me, in particular for many years to come. So again, I want to just conclude by thanking everyone for the opportunity to share a few words about a really wonderful man who helped make my tenure at Bethel a very memorable one. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Rabbi Scott Hoffman. I'll be calling up various people. I'm not sure who is actually here and who is on Zoom, although I have a feeling that Lou's brother Aaron is on Zoom. But the first person I'd like to call on is a former student and now someone I consider a friend, Lou's son, David.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And so my dad was very special to me, and the way I process things and collect my thoughts is through journaling. So I'm going to read a few journals that I have. The first one from a year ago. My dad is responsible for teaching me how to have confidence and in myself and my convictions. My dad is responsible for teaching me the importance of tradition and family. My dad is amazing because he would always do whatever necessary to make sure I have the best experiences in life. And I feel so lucky I was able to spend so much quality time with my dad. Specifically in December, I took him, together we went down to the IAC conference in Florida, and he was so much himself, and knew half the people there at the conference, and just rolling around talking to everyone, meeting all kinds of young entrepreneurs and Jewish community and Israel community, and just amazing to see his passion and be with them during that time. So just a month ago, I wrote about what my morning process was going to be. I wrote, I want to feel happy in the fact that I've remembered my dad and put in place habits to continue to remember my dad. I want to remember all the beautiful lessons my dad taught me during his life. I want to remember the most special and most congruent moments we had together, father and son, and as a family. I want to remember the way he was and the way he liked me to be. I want to remember the appreciation we had for each other and how he believed in me. I believe our goal as a family is to remember my dad's love, while also continuing our lives with beauty and passion as he would have wanted us to. The most special qualities of my dad. Some of my dad's most special qualities include his drive, dedication, and the things he did with all his heart, the best way he knew how, as all the other stories have showed as well. He cared so much about people. He cared about all the people, connecting people through experience, that people are joyful with him, that people can continue to grow community through connection, and working together and enjoying experiences. My dad learned his drive and his dedication from his mother. He also acquired his direction to aim that drive and dedication from his mother. Jewish community, connecting local communities, and the value of Israel and what Israel means to perpetuating strong Jewish communities. My dad cared very deeply about all these values to the point that a lot of his stress in life came from resistance to carrying out his mission and values the way he knew how. My mom and dad started the nonprofit YGLC in 1986. There was great success with YGLC for so many years, and many people still having close friends who we just met, people who I haven't met before, and people who met through YGLC, still being a close community. My dad cared so deeply for educating the youth. He understood that ideas are perpetuated through the youth of communities. He taught leadership and collaboration. My most important lesson about leadership I learned from my dad is to lead with your heart, lead with joy and positivity, lead with dedication and conviction, and people will receive your ideas and your values to collaborate for positive values in the community. So, things that were important to my dad. My dad loved to have experiences with his family, including his brothers and sisters, mother, and his sons and wife. The experiences he most enjoyed were family trips and Jewish holidays. My dad loved to take in moments when he recognized he was in a special place of experiencing a special time. He would stop to take it in. He would usually take a picture, and I believe his biggest fear was that he would, grow old and forget all those memories. At the funeral, my mom's cousin's husband, Momo, told a beautiful story. That years back when he was visiting in Israel, they were going to Sfat for Shabbat, and my dad was rushing around getting ready to make sure that they would be there in time, and then when they finally got there, my dad said, he stopped everything, he stopped Momo, and he said, we're here in a very special place, so let's take a minute to realize where we are. When my dad recognized he was in a special place or an experience, he had so much joyful excitement. He would have a huge smile on his face. He would say, wow, or tell a story related to where he was. He tended to sometimes tell the same story over and over again. But every time he would tell it, he would have the same excitement. He'd also love to hear other people telling stories about him, and loved hearing other people appreciate his efforts, and people around him, and many people had no issues expressing their appreciation of him, as you've seen so far today. So one of the ways that I hope to continue to remember my dad and continue his efforts of YDLC, as Rabbi Jeff said, is a project. It's called the Balcher Legacy Project, and there's papers with the information in the back of the sanctuary. But the idea here is that anyone can share their unique knowledge and assist in inspiring and mentoring young adults in the Jewish and Israeli American community. So Lou Balcher enjoyed connecting people and creating peace in the community, as my mom wrote that is on his tombstone. His life project was schmoozing with top people in Jewish and Israeli American communities and bridging communities. He would often say that these were all the top people in all the different fields that he would bring together. We're creating a tool for young adults to connect with all these people who want to share their knowledge and mentorship. So, yeah, just asking if you're interested in being a part of this, so you can sign up. There's a QR code in the back, and sign up to be on this app that young adults in YGLC will be able to continue to have, to build a mentorship with. And yeah, these are all the reasons that my dad was so special, and I love him so much.
As we move through the remainder of our speakers, I would ask and remind all of our speakers once again, please keep your remarks limited to 3 minutes. We do have, unfortunately, a hard deadline when we have to complete our service, and we want to make sure that everyone who has registered has a chance to speak. We begin with our own, who is on Zoom. Please unmute yourself and please share. Oh, Alex is going to speak? I didn't. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't. I wasn't on the list. Okay, we're going to invite Alex up first. I do apologize. I didn't have it on the list there, Alex. My apologies.
I might need this booster stool here.
I
That's my
understand.
trick.
Hi, everyone. As most of you know, I'm Lou's son, Alex. Maybe you don't recognize me because of my unkept shloshim beard right now. Don't worry about it. It's coming off tonight. I can't hold a candle to David's beard, though. I mean, seriously, it's dangerous. Don't hold a candle up to that. I have a lot in common with my dad, but one thing I don't have in common with him is giving speeches, so unlike David's beard, I'll keep this short. Enough of the beard, I'm sorry. As everyone knows, my dad's mission in life was to bring Jewish young people together anywhere from a rafting weekend in the Poconos to the matzah aisle at ShopRite. These events brought thousands of people together over the years, including some of my own family members. My amazing cousins, Robbie and Sarah and Becca Where are you? Oh, there you are. They're here part of because of my dad. He loved his family, and he loved my mom so much. His Jewish Egyptian princess. That was one of the many lines he liked to use on repeat. When I first brought home my now fiancée, Marissa, to meet my parents, I warned her on the car ride over that when my dad says, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim, he'll look up at my mom, and then he'll pan over to you and say, and now guys, just remember what they were wearing when they left Egypt. And he said it again the next night at the second Seder too. My dad always had a very positive outlook on life. When he first found out he had cancer, he called David and I and said he was going to be a cancer survivor, just like my mom. I was obviously in shock, but at the time of the prognosis, it seemed promising. That quickly changed. It was a long year and a half, not made easier by COVID, but my dad kept his positive attitude until the end. The day that my dad passed away, I dreamt about him. The dream is hard to describe. There is a feeling that our family had just returned from the airport, but we didn't have our belongings. He was the only person in the dream. He was healthy, pre-cancer, just sitting in the house for a couple of weeks. Then there was a feeling that something changed. My dad stood up, put on a suit, and left for the airport to get our things. Then I woke up, and I think about it a lot, and I'm still trying to understand what it meant, what it means to me. But in that moment when I woke up, it felt like he was at peace. I'm glad we're able to put him to rest in Israel, no matter how crazy and that trip was. Him being there has made my connection to Israel even stronger. I'm sure that was part of his plan. I'm looking forward to being able to visit him every time I go. I love you, Dad, and I'm so proud to be your son.
Thank you, Alex. And now we will turn to Zoom for Aaron. Are you there? Please unmute.
It's very special to be part of this gathering. My computer I couldn't open up my speaker, so I came to Miriam. Miriam does the speaking for both of us on many occasions, and I want to save 3 minutes and give it to someone else. So Miriam's going to, as she has in so many times, giving the inspiration for all of us around. I just want one thing where we have a few other people here that are working with me, and Louis asked me in his last words to carry on the part of work that he was doing with Entebbe. Last night I see Rami here. Rami, raise your hand so people see you. Rami, who was the operations officer in Entebbe, he spoke last night to about 100 people that we arranged, and we're trying to develop over the next year a program for Israelis and Americans, because young Israelis also don't know about Entebbe so much. And so last night was a trial.
She's coming out.
And we hope that in 4.5 years from now, in the 50th year celebration of Entebbe, we'll have something for Louis to do. Okay. What?
Jocelyn asked me to repeat what I said at the funeral. The Shloshim, the date of the Shloshim came out by the Parsha of Ki Teisei, which is the towards Ki Teisei in the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. Chapter 33, there's a beautiful dialogue between Moshe and God, where Moshe asks God to please show me your face, and very poetically goes back and forth, where God at the end just gives the final sentence, "V'ra'ita et acharai u'panai lo yir'u." That's it. Bottom line, you can see my back, you will not be able to see my face. And my father had taught me as a young girl this explanation, which to me was has been an imagery through my life on coping with difficult situations. What Rashi says, what does it mean to see my back? The back is the back of the head of God, which what God showed Moses was, you cannot see my face, but he showed him the back with the talit and the kesher tefillin, the knot of the tefillin. When you put on the tefillin, there's a knot in the back of the neck. And that's the sign of the covenant between the Jewish people and God. That if you maintain that faith, that will always be behind you, while God is the inspiration ahead of you. And what my father explained to me, that what God was saying was, if I showed you my face is the future. If I showed you as human being my face, you wouldn't be able to get up in the morning and take the next step. But what I can give you is hindsight. If you maintain your belief and your openness, you'll be able to understand maybe later on why these steps happen. When Lou got his diagnosis, the doctors wanted to tell him that, kind of predict the future for him. And Lou, in his positive outlook in life and stubbornness, said, if God wasn't going to show Moses the future, who the hell do you think you are to tell me what my future will be? And he said, I'm here to live. And Lou, with his big smile, lived life and loved life. And he just began to set goals. And whatever he may have procrastinated in his life, he made up for in the last 1.5 years. He set goals and he went for it and he did it. He told us all that he's going to do a 45th year. In another year, I'm doing a 45th year celebration for commemoration for Entebbe. He did it. And every single event that he pulled off, if it was in person or if it was by Zoom, he looked great. He put his best foot forward. But the time did come for Lou to go. And in all of those goal settings, Lou managed to make sure that he left a legacy behind for all of us. As Aaron just said, he asked him in his last days to please take over and continue the mission of letting the world know about Entebbe. And what was his thing about Entebbe? It wasn't just that Netanyahu was born in Philadelphia, but he was so into the connection of Jewish community and bring people alive about with the Judaism and the message of Entebbe, that Kol Yisrael Arevim Le'lazeh, that every Jew is responsible one for another. And look at what's happening in Ukraine today. An Israel mission went right out with the top medical team that to do telemedicine and be able to save lives. This is Am Yisrael cares for Am Yisrael, and Am Yisrael cares for the world. And that's the strong message that Lou wanted to instill, and that every generation of young Jews should learn and understand that we have a responsibility in this world, one for another, and Jew to Jew. As I said that, where God said, I can't show you my face, I can't show you my future, the future, my heart goes out to you, Jocelyn, today. This explanation so much fits for you personally, because, oh my God, if God would have showed you, this is what your future is going to be. Your husband's going to go at this young age, and that same month of mourning, your mom would go. And on one day, you're going to say Kaddish for your husband, your mom, and for 10 years of your father. I don't know if you would have been able to get out of bed just at that thought ahead of you. But thank God God doesn't give us the picture of the future. He gives us the strength and a faith to cope with the day, and the hindsight that one day maybe you'll understand why this all flowed together. And I wrote a poem for you. And 7 days you shall mourn. Gray clouds in a dusty haze, stagnant, preventing me from seeing beyond. Though pregnant with promising rain, they oppress my heart into a state of gloom, and I remain somber, waiting for them to pass, searching the hidden mountain view, praying for a rainbow to break through, to remind me of God's promise that the world would not be destroyed and life goes on. Lou was such a positive person, and his positive attitude towards the world, towards people, towards Am Yisrael, towards bringing everyone together should be the strength for you and all of us to carry on and to carry on his mission. Yehi zachor lebaruch.
We'll call upon Judah Balcher to speak.
Thank you all. You can hear me? Thank you all for being part of the Balcher Al-Ghazi family. I wanted to prepare a portrait of Louis's life growing up that I didn't think would be covered in this. And my computer crashed and I lost some time, so it'll be shorter, thank God, huh? Each man is my brother, each man is my friend. Louis and I sang at Camp Ramah out by Punderson Lake, rowing down the headwaters of the Cuyahoga River. A good hour's drive from our home in Cleveland Heights, a block from the Hebrew Academy in the heart of Little Israel. Louis had the upper bunk, I was in the lower bunk, in the little room at the top of the stairs, with a laundry chute down to the basement, which often flooded. There were cellars and crawl spaces also all crammed with enough cans to feed a platoon, just in case of World War III. Though the Holocaust was not talked about, its reverberation was in our home. Every cupboard was full, freezer and fridge. It was also a house of books, wherever you turned, whether opposite the grand piano at the base of the stairs or somehow snuck even into the little room. It was also a house of song and merriment, where hundreds could gather in our big room and large backyard with its formidable oak. There was a cherry tree and a pine tree in the front yard, along with rose bushes and honeysuckle. Tree-lined streets of oak, maple, and even buckeye, full of flying squirrel. Our backyard was nestled up to Kane Park's amphitheater, where Bob Hope could sing into our living room. While in the military during World War II, our dad, David, met our mom, Rebecca, a genius machinist with a bride that had a law degree. 6 children soon afoot, Sherry, the eldest, that arrived to Northwestern with a full scholarship in journalism and graduated 4.0. Connie and her violin that majored in French and also learned Spanish and became a professor of English. Art was studying rocks, geology, and was king of the mat with an arm drag and double leg that could knock off your pants. Chuck wrestled also and won his fair share. He loved fixing up cars, especially his Valiant, and gravitated to social work. Coach Joe Geiger believed in Louis and made him captain, co-captain of the wrestling team. These were the years of JFK, MLK, Woodstock, and Vietnam. Walter Cronkite, James Kirk and his enterprise, and Johnny Carson were the face of the nation. In high school, Louis opted for a non-traditional alternative at Cleveland Heights High called Flex. When he wasn't beating up on me, he had a fascination for psychology and eventually majored in it. He loved Asimov, Heinlein, and Bradbury, and if he lived long enough, he also would have tried to be the first Jew on Mars. He's probably the only human being that read Tolstoy's War and Peace in the bathroom. Louis and I wrestled together, ran laps together, hitchhiked together, and even roomed together at Hebrew University. On stage there, we put on a spoof professional wrestling act, getting lots of laughs in front of a large crowd. Cleveland Heights had more shuls than churches, and every Sabbath its streets were full of Jews walking to and fro. Then Mom would open our doors to the whole neighborhood with delicious pastries from Davis Bakery, which was next door to the Canary restaurant, where you could get a juicy falafel. The Cleveland Jewish community was 100,000 strong. When they came to Israel, led by Judge Saul Stillman, we all marched as one. There was a white blue J&F fund box in every window, every Jewish home window. In Cleveland Heights, it was good to be a Jew. It was also, okay. The Balcher, I didn't, in my rewrite, it got a little mixed up. I didn't have time to finish. The Balcher family had a yacht at the East 9th Street Pier. The elder siblings water skied on Lake Erie and learned to tread water in its waves, every father's first mitzvah, teaching his children to swim. Mom was always happiest when all her children were around, especially at Passover with her feast of brisket and world-class matzo ball soup would abound. She worked 7 days a week, except not on the Sabbath. After that, she divorced. Every Friday night, she blessed the Sabbath candles, bringing her light into the world and God's light into her soul. Every Sabbath, like much of the neighborhood, we went to Park Synagogue and prayed under its dome. Because I didn't finish, I just want to acknowledge a few people that I know were my brother's friends and friends of our family. I see Judy Seidel Block. I just want to acknowledge we were a wonderful neighborhood of Jews and non-Jews. And Louis' good friends, Johnny Kaufman, I don't think he's here, and Isaac Levy, Reverend Levy's son. The bottom line is that our great mother fostered in all of her children a tremendous love and pride in being Jewish and pride in Israel. And Louis took it to the hilt, and we all love him because he was great. And I just want to emphasize that our mom was an incredible mother, as Louis acknowledged. And I'm so grateful for all of you to being here honoring him. What a great man Louis is. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Charles Balcher is our next speaker.
So Chuck Balcher, Louis' next oldest brother, still in Cleveland Heights, or right about 4 miles away, where all of us Balchers were born. I wasn't really that aware of what Louis was doing his whole life, but I'm so proud that he was able to unite the Jewish people and that's what I'm going to remember him for. And I'll consider him royalty for being up with the other Jews up there. He did equally important things. So I'll miss him, and I love my brother Louis.
Thank you. We have next Ed and Esther Beck.
Can you hear me? Most of you don't know me. I'm Ed Beck, and Lou and I had an incredibly intense and wonderful relationship while he was the academic officer at the Israel Consul General in Philadelphia before it closed. I'm from New York, moved to Harrisburg in 1972, but I grew up in New York, and in New York we have nicknames for everybody. My nickname for Lou was Can Do Lou. There wasn't a thing he couldn't do. In 2002, I was about to found an organization that exists. Today, it's called Scholars for Peace in the Middle East. I had been a professor at Penn State Harrisburg, and I had been given a lecture by the embassy in Washington to kind of represent the state of Israel on campuses during the rise of the Second Intifada. And I founded this group, and all the academic officers in the United States were told to get in contact with me as I started to organize and develop a mailing list of pro-Israel faculty that grew to 100,000 at one time. Lou was my point guy, being that I was in Harrisburg and I was in his district. I would speak with him regularly, and some say people take drinks from water fountains. Lou took a drink from fire hydrants. He had a capacity to absorb so much and give so much out. And we became partners in what John Lewis would call making good trouble. My time with Lou, and apparently he shared it with Jocelyn and the family, my time with Lou was perhaps the most stimulating, creative, and productive time in my life, beyond my academic career, beyond things I used to do in the community. The legacy that he helped me create, and by the way, it said I've heard from many of the speakers here that he focused in primarily on family and young people. I was 10 years older than Lou. He didn't have to deal with me. I was getting ready to retire when I started this. He energized me. And to this day, now there are about 6 or 7 national and international groups of faculty members working hard on college campuses as a result of the energy that came from Lou to combat anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, and all the things that the Jewish people are facing in the contemporary world. But my personal relationship, and I wanted to say this to the family, when I retired and COVID hit, Lou Lou and I continued to chat on Facebook. And it was such an honor to be invited to his birthday party, his Zoom birthday party, and see, I don't know how many people were on that Zoom, but it was an extraordinary number. And he said something, I don't know if people heard it. He said, I'm bringing you all together while I'm alive so I can hear what you have to say. And it was a powerful moment. How many of you were on that Zoom? I'm sure many of you were. I'm sure you heard it. And I'm glad he heard it because he deserved it. So with that, I just wanted to share those feelings with the family. Thank you.
Thank you. There she goes. I apologize, I did not have Lou's sister Sherry on the list. Please, Sherry, come up and speak.
So my speech is just 3 minutes. But I do want to thank Rabbi Weiss, because she said we have the last name in common. But she said a lot of things that I wanted to say. I also wanted to thank my brother Judah for telling you something about our growing up, and he inadvertently left out our wonderful sister Connie, who liked to tell the story of going back and forth from Ohio State, riding with Louis. So I just wanted to acknowledge Connie. I also wanted to say Aharon called Lou Louis, so I'm going to call him Louis too, and he told us that it was okay, even though a lot of you know him as Lou. So my brother Louis was a very special man. So many people knew him, respected him, and loved him, all because of his passion, devotion, and good works. The world is a vastly better place because of his influence, which continues to live on and impact so many lives. What I remember the most was Louis' mission to be the peacemaker across the globe, but with family members as well. I'm told our mother confided in Louis, telling him that one of her greatest failures was not being able to heal the rifts in our family. So Louis took on the challenge, especially after her passing. And for a year and a half, his siblings did come together. Every Wednesday morning, we came together and we said prayers and we listened to one another's stories and challenges. Louis was a persistent and tireless warrior for what he knew to be right. He was the kind of man who could get things done that others thought were impossible. He fought so hard and painfully to beat his cancer, and sadly, this was one battle he could not win. But we all saw how hard he fought. A few months ago, I was able to spend 2 solid weeks with Louis and experiencing the ups and downs. We all know that he was in a great deal of pain, but at times you wouldn't have even known that he was sick, especially when he was talking to people about Israel and his dreams of training future leaders in the Jewish community. His excitement was palpable, which Rabbi Weiss said, and contagious. I remember being at a local CVS with him when he was getting his COVID booster shot. Joyce and I were there, and he was in conversation with the nurse, and he was trying to recruit her for YJLC. If you come to the house after, I'll tell you the praying manna story, but that would take more than 3 minutes. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying how much I loved Louis, and I can't believe he's left us and left our hearts with an unfillable hole, but I'm comforted in knowing that my brother will never be forgotten.
Thank you, Sherry.
I'd like to call on Avner Avram next to speak.
So I'm Avner Avraham. I'm a former Mossad agent. I retired 7 years ago. And many things that was for me for the first time was because of Lou. My first lecture as a retired, it was with the Lou in Philly. The first meeting with the former CIA director. The first time we brought Rami, that became a very close friend with Lou. And I know he was very happy last year when we came to, I think, his biggest project last year. I just checked my inbox and I saw that the first email I got from Lou was 6 years ago. And he told me, hey, Avner, nice to meet you. And I told him, hey, I'm in Paris. I'm on my way to meet Michel Bacos, the captain. Oh, please, can you tell him I would like to invite him also to come to the special event in Philly. So Louis was like really a Mossad agent because he looked all the time at the target. He didn't think about himself, about the time, about anything. Just he looked at the goal. Okay, I want to make amazing event. I want to bring the real people. I want to bring the pilots. I want to bring the stories, and I will. All my life, I will remember Lou, and I promise to help his legacy and to continue his great work. And again, I'm sending big love from Israel, and I promise when I will be around in Philly, I will come. And believe me, I'm trying to find in this gallery Louis picture. Louis, where is he? Usually he said every time when he saw someone log into the Zoom meeting, he said, oh, this is Avner, this is Avner. Oh, I see Rami is here. Oh, I see Katie. Can you say something? So we will meet. I promise that we will meet and we will make events and we will continue his legacy.
Let's go. With that, we move on with Yaron Seidman. Yaron?
Thank you. I had the very good fortune and great honor of knowing Lou, and I served as Consul General in Philadelphia between 2012 and 2016. When I think of words that come to mind that define him most to me, innocence, enthusiasm, passion, boundless curiosity, and endless empathy to others come to mind. Most of us, we tend to lose many of those traits on that path between childhood and adulthood. We lose our innocence, we tame down our passions, our curiosities, we sink into our daily routines, our jobs. We become somewhat comfortably numb, as it were. Not Lou. Lou came into the office every day, every morning, but he never came to work. He never saw what he did as merely a job or a task he had to perform. He never saw it that way. When he came in every morning, he came in on a mission. Every single day, Lou Balcher came and was on a mission. That is how he treated his life. That's how he treated what he did. That's how he saw it. I don't think it's accidental that Lou spent so much time and energy training young adults. After all, who better than Lou knew how to relate to that fleeting moment between adolescence and adulthood? That was Lou's sweet spot. That zone is where he lived. That's where he was in his element, really. I have to say that every day when I met Lou, when I saw him, I don't know why, I was immediately, that Energizer commercial came to mind. His battery never ended. And really, it hasn't ended still. We're here today talking about him thinking about him, will continue thinking about him. I mentioned empathy. I have to say this because that's his sense. I rarely have seen anyone as sensitive to others as Lou was. He never took off his 9/11 pin. Every visitor that came to Philadelphia, he took to see the Yoni Netanyahu memorial that he was so instrumental in putting together. He was just really something else. But if there are two things that define Lou more than anything else, it's his passion for Israel and his passion for his family, for his Egyptian princess primarily. Never stopped talking about that, never. I'm grateful for having known Lou. I'm thankful for his inspiration for me and for so many others, for touching my life and touching the lives of so many, for being my teacher. And Yehi Zichro Baruch.
We move on to Judith Bassick.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here with Lou's friends and family. It is with gratitude that I wanted to share some words of the impact Lou had on a 22-year-old. I met Lou and Jocelyn, in the summer of 1992, 30 years ago. My last name was Weitzman, in case Jocelyn, you might remember me. I had recently graduated from college and moved from northern New Jersey to Center City to start my real first job in Philadelphia. I saw in the Jewish Exponent an ad for a rafting trip in the Poconos sponsored by YJLC. I didn't know anyone who would be there, but I knew I liked rafting, and it was a Jewish organization, which seemed similar to USY, a Jewish high school social group I've been active in. There were 100 people that attended that rafting trip. It was one of the largest, and it was an amazing time. I went from knowing 0 people to starting close relationships with other Jewish singles, at least 30. I also want to recognize one of them who I see here today, Stu Benoff. From that, I ended up going to multiple rafting trips and winter ski trips and the monthly Jewish dances, and finally the 18-day Israel trip. I loved the YGLC events. If Lou was planning a YGLC event, I used my connections to encourage others to come. I watched baby David and later baby Alex as they were growing up. He would always include them in the group gatherings. He would joke that one of the reasons why he had these gatherings is for all of us to have a Jewish family, and many of us now do have that. While I lost touch with Lou and his family, I will eternally be grateful to the impact that Lou had on my Jewish life and the fulfillment that he brought me. I did marry a Jewish man, had a boy and a girl, and enrolled them in a Jewish day school. I became a board member of that day school. They both had bar and bat mitzvahs, and we all have gone to Israel. My children are now 18 and 15, and I do hope that they find a social group with a leader like Lou to be blessed like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rami Sherman.
Shalom to everyone. It's an honor to be with you. I ask myself what word I will share with you. I feel that I am part of a family of many I know, but many more I don't. And I would like to say one thing, which today or last night, after I drove back from the closest Mushav, where I gave a lecture to Balcher family, I thought to myself, what would be if in Entebbe wasn't even one Jew as an hostages? What would be the situation? Do Israel do something? But I ask something more. if it will be only Israeli there, was it important for the Jewish people around? And I add to my thought, what is a connection between by being Jew and being Israeli? Over there, it's a connection. And being in Philly last July, 4th of July, I understood something very important. You are important for the state of Israel. It's not only Israel important for every Jew around the world. You important for the state of Israel. By doing this ceremony, by walking up in love of being Jew, by walking to the work or having a Friday dinner, you are an example of positive and good things. And that is mutual responsibility. That is a togetherness, that is my mission of sharing the story and be with every one of you to understand that you have something to give, much more than money, much more than political support, much, much more. But being you as you are, as you live, everyone on his life. For that reason, I flew to Entebbe. Thank you. And I love you, Balcher family in Israel, in Tzfat, and everywhere, in Philly and other places in the state. I'm with all of you.
Tada. Thank you. Jonathan and Wendy Kaufman will now speak.
I've known Louis, or I knew Louis, for nearly all my life. And I'm not going to even begin to attempt to express what his loss means to me. But what I will share is some observations from when he was young and how that led to the person that most of you knew later on in his life. Louis demonstrated his determination in his years of wrestling. And I remember many a night watching Louis run through the streets of Cleveland Heights in the rain and the snow just to get down to weight. And if you don't know wrestling, that's a big deal. And his dedication really was exemplified one cold morning when a group of friends from high school got together for breakfast at Nelson Ledges State Park. And while the rest of us were just messing around, Louis was standing on a cliff edge, davening as the sun rose. And inclusion were the many parties that Louis held in the family home throughout high school. He gloried in them because it was his opportunity to bring friends and people that weren't necessarily friends together. And the joy in his life, as so many have said, it was Jocelyn and David and Alex. And it's just an incredible loss. So I just thank you all for listening to these few words.
Thank you. Eshkach. Thank you. We'd like to ask Connie Inakai, Lou's sister, to share a few words with us now. Connie?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm Louis' sister, and I didn't sign up to speak, but when I saw that there were 6 Balcher siblings, and I was the only one who wasn't speaking, I decided I have to say something. So I love Louis so much, and I celebrated all of his accomplishments with him. We had a very close connection, and I'm just so proud to see all the people who are praising Louis. And I'm praising him also because he deserves it. So my name is Connie. I live in Maryland, and thank you all for coming here.
Connie, I also want to thank you for putting together the slide presentation that we saw at the beginning. Thank you so much. Our final speaker is Israel Nitzan.
My name is Israel Nitzan. I serve as the Deputy Consul General of Israel in New York, and I address you all today on behalf of the consulate where Lou had many friends. And I'm sorry I cannot be there today with you and with the family in person. Lou was a friend of all of us. He was an inspiration and a role model to so many others, and I think that above all, he was a true mensch. Lou dedicated 4 decades of his life in service to the American Jewish community and the people of Israel. His contribution was done also during, as the former Consul General Yaron Zeidman mentioned, during his period of work at the Israeli consulate in Philadelphia. And I think also beyond that, in his tireless efforts in building positive and long-lasting friendships for Israel across the United States with diverse communities and institutions, and for that we're forever grateful. To honor this incredible devotion and self-sacrifice, we were humbled to award Lou with a plaque on behalf of the State of Israel, as well as the consulate in New York, in recognition of his extraordinary service to the Jewish community, the State of Israel, and Am Yisrael. While it was a small token of gratitude, of our gratitude, I hope that it spoke volumes for how much we owe Lou and what we felt for him. And as I said, we are forever in debt and grateful. So I wish Lou's family and the rest of the community only smachot, and that Lou's legacy should continue to be an everlasting source of inspiration and guidance for all of us. May his memory be a blessing.
I want to thank everybody who shared memories of Lou this afternoon. And at this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand as Rabbi Schnitzer will chant the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer.
El Malei Rachamim shochein b'mromim Hamitzei menucha nechona al kanfei ashchina b'ma'alot kedoshim utahorim kezohar harakia mahazirim et nishmat Reb Levi HaKohen ben Lev v'Rivka shalach li'olamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Lachena Ba'al Harachamim Ashtirehu B'Seiter Kenafecha Li'olamim Utzrar B'Tzrachayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach b'shalom amishkavo v'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Lou Balcher, who has gone to his eternal home. O merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul thus be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen. And please join with me as we say the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, ve'olama divra kirute, ve'amlich malchute, b'chaye echon u'v'yom echon, u'v'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'olmei olamaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shmei dekudsha b'rechu, leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshevei tevel v'imru. Amen. May be seated. Again, I want to thank everyone who made this afternoon possible. And I know there are many more stories to share. And so the Zoom will be open following the conclusion of this formal segment of the service. But we're going to conclude this service the way that Lou's Levaya very movingly concluded, as a nod to the fact that Lou is a Kohen. We're going to offer the priestly benediction. Yivarechecha, Yivarech Karnai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and protect you.
Yarnai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
May God show favor to you and be gracious to you.
Yisarnai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Vayasem lecha shalom.
May God lift up his light upon you and grant you peace.
Amen.
So the Zoom will remain open for another 15 minutes. I just want to acknowledge and thank Scott and Steve back there for handling all the technical issues so we didn't have to worry about it. Thank you so much. Also want to let everyone know that those who are here are invited to back to the home. Jocelyn and the family will be receiving visitors, 152 Bateman Road in Langhorne. And also, I'm pleased to announce that we are organizing a community, hopefully national trip to Israel next spring, the Lou Balcher Memorial Trip. We will be there over Yom HaZikaron, Israel Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day. If you are interested in getting information, please let us know either by emailing me at rabbi@tiferethisraelpa.org, or there's a sign-up sheet just to put your name and your email address, and we'll get you the information. It obligates you in no way, we'll get you the information so that you can make a decision about whether you want to join us next spring for the Lou Balcher Memorial Trip to Israel.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schnitzer. And I want to say, L'Shanat, Shana Haba B'Yerushalayim, may this moment next time find us in Israel together. And may the next time we gather be for a simcha, for a joyous occasion, wishing blessing and protection to all those whose hearts are filled with sorrow this afternoon. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Ki odeni ma'amin ba שחקי על החלומות, זו אני החולם סך, שחקי באדמה מן, כי עודני מאמין בך, שחקי באדמה מן, כי עודני מאמין בך, כי עוד נפשי דרור שואפת, לו מכרתי